Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our conversation on race. I will be interviewing my little sister, Olivia. Hi, Olivia. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today on the call.
Yeah.
Um, let's start off just you telling me a little bit about where you're at right now in life.
Um, well, my name is Olivia. I'm 13. I go to a private school that's not it's very diverse. There's like 40% black and 40% white and 20% other, which counts as me for being mixed. I run track. I've run track for like 4 or 5 years now, and I do speech and debate, which is mostly white people in that. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So, we're going to be talking about race in this conversation. And I wanted to start out asking you kind of a simple question. So, what would you say is your earliest race related memory?
Um, I feel like when I was younger, before like I was like 8, I usually didn't think about race at all. I didn't even think about like my parents being two different races. I just thought of them as the same. But I think my earliest childhood race related memory was probably when I was like 6 or 7, and I my brother was telling me about what it was like to have white privilege. And I didn't think that I was thinking that I would have that because I was half white. And he told me that I would never have white privilege. No one would ever see me as white, and they would always see me as black just because I was darker than any white person and because of the color of my skin. And I remember being really sad about that and wishing that I was white and telling him that. And that was like the first time that I realized that there's a difference between growing up black in America and growing up white.
Okay. So you've kind of had two school experiences, right? So you've been to two
Yeah.
different private schools, and one was a little more white than the other one was. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I started going to a very wealthy, predominantly white private school when I was about 8. And that was, for me, I didn't really, everyone told me that it was going to be mostly white and there were only like 4 black kids in the whole school. But I didn't see that when I was younger. I just became friends with the white kids. And I think as I grew up in that, I slowly started realizing how different I was from them when I would be going to their houses and seeing their live in mansions and seeing how they are treated differently and how they had more money than me. And I kind of was like really surprised because I never, before that, I had never seen the difference between being black and being white. And then I switched to a very diverse school that had a lot of different races, a lot of different class differences. And I kind of tried to, I had like a kind of like a culture shock. I it was the first time that I ever had like the choice to be friends with white kids or be friends with black kids. And there, I realized that there's not that many mixed kids in the schools. I had a lot of mixed friends before that, and there were almost no mixed kids at my new school where it was very diverse. So yeah, they were very two different schools, very different. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you realized what it was like to be mixed when you started going to the more diverse school, right?
Yeah, I realized that I can relate to a lot of white kids because I had a white mom and I talked like a white person and I dressed like a white person, and I kind of realized how I could relate to them, but I could also relate to a lot of the black kids. And I kind of realized what it was like to be a biracial kid in America.
Okay. So you say, it's funny that you use air quotes when you're saying talk like and dress like. How would you describe that to someone who doesn't really know what you mean by talk like a white person?
A lot of my black friends have told me that I don't use words that they use because I've always grown up with a white mom who taught me to talk like her, and I also from a young age started going to a white school where a lot of them had money. A lot of my friends uh, had very good education and everything, and I started just to talk like them. And then once I started making more black friends, I realized that how different I was from them, and they would like tell me that like that I almost was like a white person, but I looked like them.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Um, what two races are you mixed with?
Oh, I'm half. Well, my dad is African. He's from Rwanda, and our mom is from New York. She's white.
Okay. So which side of your race do you identify with more?
I think from a young age, I definitely related was I could identify with with the white side of my race. I had a lot more white friends, and I like related to my white relatives more. But then when I started going to a more diverse school, I started kind of identifying with my black side more. And I think that I can still relate to them both, but I think I identify with my black race more.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, I think I've always identified more with my white side, but there are times where I've wanted to identify more as a Black woman because I
Yeah.
think regardless of what culture you identify with, people are going to expect things of you just by the color of your skin, the texture of your hair, and like a lot of times
Yeah.
your last name too. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how life happens that way.
Mhm.
So when you first meet people, what question do you most often get about your race?
Most people think that I'm Ethiopian or from Eritrea. A lot of people ask me, just like random people will come up to me and say, "Are you Ethiopian?" Especially when I'm with my siblings, or that we all have different texture hair. We all like some of us have wavy hair and others of us have very curly hair. And I think that when I'm with my family, a lot of people think that I'm from Ethiopia. But the question that I get most when I'm by myself is if one of my parents is black and the other one is mixed, because I think that most mixed people who are mixed with black and white are a lot more pale than me, and I'm a lot darker because my dad is from Africa and he's like darker than most black men.
Okay. That's funny. So when I interviewed Maddie for this project, she said Indian is the race that she's most labeled as. And I told her that I don't ever get that unless my hair is straight. And
Mhm.
so she was really surprised to hear that because she thought that a lot of us would get that question as, are we Indian? But you're saying Eritrean or Ethiopian is the one you usually get.
Yeah, I think that my hair gives away that I'm mixed, and like I don't think I've ever gotten that I was Indian. But most people, yeah, think I'm either mixed or black or just Ethiopian.
Yeah. Okay. I've definitely got the Ethiopian a lot too. That's when my hair is very curly.
Yeah.
Um, a monoracial person, are you familiar with that term?
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, a monoracial person is somebody who is of one race. So they're either all black or they're, all white, all Indian, all Ethiopian. But a biracial person is mixed with two races. A multiracial person is multiple. So, how would you describe to a monoracial person what the biracial experience is like? How would you describe it to them?
I think that someone who's monoracial has never had to been, well, it depends on what they are, but usually they don't have to be asked what they are. You can usually tell, well, a white person probably never gets asked what race is your parent. And so I think that they would probably be surprised how often we get asked by random people, like if your mom is white, if your dad is black, and I think that they've never had to experience that before. And they've probably never had to experience trying to like make friends and trying to decide which side you should identify with more. So like white people probably just identify with white people who look like them. And we don't, there's not that many people who look like us. And so we kind of have to identify with one side of our race.
How do you feel when you meet another biracial person?
I feel like we can understand each other because most of the time, like my black friends will be telling me like what it's like to have a black mom and everything. I've never had that before. But when I'm with like my mixed friends, which I don't have that many, but when I'm with them, we talk about like what it's like to have two with parents with two different races and two different cultures, and like kind of the culture clash sometimes, and like what it's like to have that and what it's like to try to identify with one side of your race.
What are some difficult parts about being biracial?
I think that there's two difficult parts that I've had. One is obviously trying to figure out who you should be friends with, which side you should identify with. And because I've been to two very different schools where I've been surrounded by a lot of white people and surrounded by a lot of diverse different groups, and I've always had like trying to figure out who I should identify with. So that's always been difficult because there's a lot of things that I can like relate to white people, and there's a lot of things I can relate to black people, but it's also the opposite. There's a lot of things I can't relate with them. So it's kind of hard to find your group. And also, I think that it's difficult to figure out, like, sometimes when I'm with my white friends, I can talk like them and I dress like them and I act like them. They can sometimes forget that I'm half black, even though I look a lot different than them. They can sometimes like talk about black people like I'm not that, and it can be difficult to kind of like remind them, oh, I'm half black, like you can't really say that. And then that also happens a lot with my black friends. They'll tell me like things about white people, like, oh, white people always do this, and I always have to remind them I'm half white, you can't really say that. So that's definitely difficult to have to deal with.
Yeah, there's like two narratives that you have to carry with you everywhere. And you're
Yeah.
right that a lot of people forget. And it's so crazy because like your skin color hasn't changed. Maybe the way you talk has changed depending on who you're with, but all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, you're one of us. Like we can talk about other people and not really consider your other half.
Yeah, and I know that like a lot of black people probably have never had to experience white people talking about what like black people right around them, like right with them, and we have to deal with that a lot of the time because they forget.
So we talked about what's difficult. What do you think? Do you think there are benefits to being biracial? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I think there definitely are a lot of benefits. Two benefits that I think that I've experienced are first, you can definitely identify with both sides if you want to. You can have white friends and black friends, which is what I do. And I have like you can most black people, it's harder for them to relate to white people, and most white people, it's harder for them to relate to black people. But for us, we can relate to both sides, and sometimes we can be like a bridge to connect the two sides. And I feel like sometimes that's kind of our responsibility as biracial people to be able to connect the two sides. I think that they're so different, but we're both we're black and we're white, and we can still connect the two. We can be like a bridge to them.
Hmm, that's awesome.
And I think another benefit is probably being able to, like we said before, when they talk about people, like white people will talk about black people around me, I can tell them like you probably shouldn't say that, and they can't. They usually don't talk about that around black people. They never had the experience and had the opportunity. Like black people have never had the opportunity to tell them that that's not okay to say around black people or about black people. And that's the same thing with white people. Like you can't say stuff about them, and I can kind of tell both sides what you should and should not say. And I've had a lot of people like ask me questions, like my black friends ask me questions about like what should I not say about white people, because I know what it's like because have both sides in me, and they can like ask me those questions, and we can kind of be like they can ask us their race related questions.
Hmm, that's cool. I don't think I've ever had that experience with black people. With white, definitely. But that's probably because I'm around more white people,
Yeah.
at least in the workplace, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Let's talk about hair. Tell me
Um.
your hair story, your hair journey.
Yeah. I feel like like a lot of people will think that I'm black. A lot of my black friends don't know that I'm mixed until they meet my mom, which is really awkward sometimes when they're like ask me, "Are you adopted?" Like once they meet our mom. But I think that a lot of the time my hair gives it away that I'm mixed, and it can be a little bit like I don't know. I feel like a lot of white people always say that they want my hair, and black people say the same thing. Because I think it's kind of like a mix, right, between the two. But it usually gives away that I'm mixed. Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, is it hard to take care of your hair?
No, actually, we were just talking about that. I didn't put anything in it today. Just
Yeah.
one
What was
thing.
your hair routine today?
Well, I did take a shower, but I just use one product, just Aussie conditioner, and I only use avocado because I don't know, I like that one better. And a lot of people think that it's hard. And I think that curly hair is very hard. Like kinky and coily hair is really hard to take care of. But our hair is, or at least my hair is really easy to take care of. And it's kind of weird. We have very curly hair, but it's actually really thin. I have a lot of hair, but it's really thin, and it's kind of I think that's because most like people, like white people with straight hair, their hair is pretty thin, but black people have very curly hair, so we kind of have a mix. I at least have a mix. It's very thin, but it's still very curly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it looks great today.
Thanks.
Uh, all right, Liv. Well, thanks for joining us today. We're going to sign off and talk to you guys next time. Peace.